Hulk Hogan's wife just found his secret video before his death, and what he said was devastating. Hulk Hogan's wife just uncovered a private video he left behind before his death, and what he said in it has shocked everyone. Hidden from the public until now, this emotional clip reveals truths Hulk Hogan never shared before his tragic passing. Fans are calling it his final message, and it's clear that he knew something was coming. From childhood stardom to deep reflection in his final days, Hulk Hogan left behind more than a legacy. He left a warning. Was this his silent goodbye, or is there something Hollywood doesn't want us to know? The wrestling world is still reeling from the tragic passing of Hulk Hogan, but today, something even more shocking has surfaced, something that no one, not even his closest friends or fans, could have prepared for. In a private moment never meant to be seen by the public, a hidden video recorded by Hogan himself has now come to light, uncovered by none other than his wife. The contents of that video are more than heartbreaking, they are devastating. It's not just what Hogan said, but the way he said it. The tone in his voice. The weight in his words. The silence between each sentence. This wasn't just a farewell. This was a man who knew. This was a man who had secrets. And now, we're finally seeing a side of Hulk Hogan the world never got to meet. For decades, Terry Gene Bollea, the man the world knew as Hulk Hogan, was the indestructible force in the ring. Muscles, bandanas, mustaches, and thunderous leg drops. That was the image sold to millions. But behind the red and yellow gear, behind the cheers and fireworks, there was a deeply reflective, often tormented man, someone who had walked through the highest peaks of fame and the darkest valleys of human experience. What his wife found on that video, tucked away on an old flash drive inside his locked drawer, wasn't a scripted message. It wasn't PR. It wasn't a retirement speech. It was raw. It was vulnerable. And for the first time, it pulled the curtain back on a lifetime of battles that had nothing to do with wrestling rings. The video opens with Hogan sitting in what appears to be his personal gym, not the pristine, polished one used for media, but the private one hidden in the back of his Florida home. The lighting is dim. The camera is angled low, likely propped up on something makeshift. Hogan's wearing a faded black tank top, and his signature bandana is replaced with a backward cap. He looks tired. Not physically, though the years have clearly caught up with him, but emotionally. He sits there for a moment in silence, breathing slowly. And then he begins. "If you're watching this," he says, his voice hoarse but clear, "then I guess I didn't make it." That one line alone has haunted millions since the clip surfaced. The idea that he recorded this with the foresight of something inevitable, a medical scare, a personal threat, or perhaps just intuition, is still being debated. But from that point on, Hogan unpacks his truth with a calmness that makes it even harder to listen to. "I lived my life larger than life," he says, "but there were parts of me I never showed anyone, not even the people I loved most." He stares at the ground, fighting tears. "There's pain I carried that the ring couldn't fix. Regrets I never healed from. And things I should have said a long time ago." What follows next is a deeply emotional account of a man facing his mortality, not as Hulk Hogan, the icon, but as Terry Bollea, the son, the father, the friend, and the flawed human being. He talks about fame, how it came fast and hit hard. How, in his own words, becoming Hulk Hogan was the best thing that ever happened to me, and the worst. He recalls nights where he'd walk into arenas to the sound of 30,000 fans chanting his name, only to return to a hotel room filled with silence. He talks about feeling trapped in a character he couldn't escape. "I created a superhero," he says. "But no one told me what happens when the cameras stop rolling." He speaks of the burden of staying relevant, the exhaustion of always being on. People don't want to hear about Hulk Hogan being tired. They want the show. They want the muscles, the catchphrases, the leg drop. They don't want to know about the surgeries, the pills, the therapy sessions. They don't want to know about the nights I couldn't sleep. Or the mornings I didn't want to wake up. His voice cracks slightly. "But I guess now they'll have to." Hogan's video confession goes on to reveal his most intimate battles, from addiction to broken relationships, to the pressure of being a symbol for masculinity in a world that punishes vulnerability. He admits he wasn't the best father at times. "I missed birthdays. I missed graduations. I missed so much because I was chasing a dream. And when I finally stopped running, I realized I'd left pieces of myself everywhere, pieces I could never get back." Perhaps the most chilling part of the video is when he pauses, leans closer to the camera, and says, "I knew something wasn't right. I felt it in my bones. Maybe it was my body talking, maybe something else. But I knew my time was coming. And I didn't want to leave without saying what I never had the courage to before." He addresses his children directly, apologizing for the times he wasn't there, for being a hero to the world, but failing in the moments that mattered most at home. He tells them he's proud of them, that he never stopped loving them, even when distance and decisions made it seem otherwise. He asks for forgiveness. "I didn't always get it right," he says. "But I tried. God knows I tried." Then he turns to his wife. And this is where the heartbreak deepens. Hogan describes her as the only person who saw me when the lights were off. He thanks her for standing by him through surgeries, scandals, and setbacks. "You saw me at my worst and still held my hand. I never thanked you enough for that. I hope this video finds you and gives you the peace I couldn't give you in life." But just when the video seems like it might end, Hogan shifts the conversation. His tone darkens. He talks about secrets, not just his own, but ones he says they never wanted me to share. He doesn't name names, but he refers to people in suits, contracts that silence, and a culture that feeds on legends and discards them when they stop selling tickets. He alludes to a time when he was warned not to speak out about what he never fully says. But he makes it clear that behind the showbiz, there was manipulation, greed, and betrayal. "They build you up, brother," he says, slipping into that iconic voice for just a moment. "And then they bleed you dry." Some fans believe he was referring to WWE. Others think he meant Hollywood. Perhaps it was both. But one thing is clear, this video was not meant for public eyes. It was personal. It was Hogan's final journal entry, his last attempt to reclaim his narrative before the world twisted it for headlines and headlines alone. The discovery of the video itself happened just days after his death, when his wife was reportedly cleaning out his office. According to sources close to the family, she found the USB drive in a locked drawer behind stacks of journals. At first, she thought it was nothing, just old training footage or family videos. But what she uncovered shook her to her core. She didn't release the video right away. She wasn't sure if she ever would. But ultimately, she felt the world needed to hear from Hogan himself. Not the sanitized version, not the icon or the entertainer, but the man who bore it all. Since the clip went viral, tributes have flooded in from fans, fellow wrestlers, and celebrities. Some shared their own memories of Hogan, others expressed shock at the emotional depth of his final words. But perhaps the most powerful reactions came from people who had never even watched a wrestling match. One fan wrote, "I didn't grow up with Hulkamania, but I know what it feels like to wear a mask for the world." Hearing him speak like that, it felt like he was talking for all of us. The video has reignited discussions about mental health in the wrestling industry, an industry notorious for building larger-than-life characters while often ignoring the emotional toll it takes on the people behind them. Hogan's revelation that he struggled in silence echoes similar sentiments shared by other wrestlers who've passed too soon, from Chris Benoit to Eddie Guerrero. The pattern is familiar. The fame, the fortune, the fall. And now, thanks to this message, fans are beginning to ask tougher questions. What really happens when the show is over? Who's there to catch the legend when he stops flying? Even in death, Hogan's influence is making waves. But this time, it's not because of a championship or a controversy. It's because he chose to be vulnerable. He chose to be human. And in doing so, he left behind something far more powerful than a wrestling legacy. He left behind a truth. A reminder that even icons carry burdens. That even legends cry when no one is watching. The question now is, what else don't we know? What was Hogan warning us about? Was it a message to the wrestling world? To the entertainment industry? Or was it something deeper, a final plea for honesty, for connection, for healing in a world that often pretends pain doesn't exist? As the internet continues to dissect every second of the video, one thing is certain: this wasn't just a goodbye. This was a confession. A man at the end of his road, trying to make peace with the trail of memories behind him, trying to leave something honest behind. The ripple effects of Hulk Hogan's secret video haven't just shaken fans, they've cracked open an entire conversation that the industry long tried to avoid. It's not just that Hogan left behind a powerful final message. It's how he did it. The intimacy. The vulnerability. The absence of glamour. In a world so obsessed with maintaining image, here was one of wrestling's greatest icons choosing to bear it all: no camera crew, no lighting, no edit. Just his voice, his truth, and his fear. Hogan's wife, Linda Claridge, or simply Lindy, as he often called her in private, reportedly watched the video alone at first, tears silently streaming down her face. Close friends said she sat motionless for over an hour after the video ended. She later confided to family members that it was like meeting a version of Terry she never fully knew. A version stripped of bravado and catchphrases. "He talked to me like he was already gone," she reportedly told a friend. "Like he knew the end was near, but didn't want to scare me." There's one part of the video that continues to haunt those who've seen it. In it, Hogan stops mid-thought. He looks directly into the camera and says, "Don't let them make a villain out of me. Not after I'm gone." The moment is so raw, so filled with resignation, that it's impossible not to wonder, what was he protecting himself from? Was he afraid of how the world might twist his legacy? Was he referring to past controversies, the leaked audio, the public backlash, the lawsuits, or something more sinister lurking beneath the surface? Theories have run wild in the days since the footage went public. Some speculate that Hogan feared a posthumous exposé, perhaps one orchestrated by individuals within the industry who once profited off his fame, but later sought to erase him from history. Others believe he knew something about the darker side of professional wrestling, things he hinted at over the years, but never openly admitted. One chilling possibility even suggests that Hogan felt he had been silenced in life, and that this video was his way of taking back the narrative from beyond the grave. And yet, for all the speculation, the heart of the video isn't about conspiracies or vengeance. It's about a man finally trying to reconcile with the truth of his own story. In the latter half of the footage, Hogan becomes noticeably more emotional. His hands tremble slightly. He speaks slower. He mentions names: old rivals, estranged friends, former tag partners, but not in bitterness. In sorrow. In longing. "I wish I'd made things right with Randy," he says quietly, referring to his decades-long friendship and falling out with Macho Man Randy Savage. "I never said sorry. I let the business come between us. And when I finally picked up the phone, it was too late." That kind of regret weighs heavy in his voice, a lesson in pride, time, and missed chances. He continues, "To the boys in the locker room I hurt, the people I let down, the fans I disappointed. I was trying to survive. I didn't always know who I was outside of Hulkamania. I got lost. And by the time I started finding myself again, I'd already burned a lot of bridges." For longtime fans, these revelations are almost impossible to absorb. Hulk Hogan, the unstoppable force, admitting he felt lost? That he burned bridges? That he lived in fear of being remembered the wrong way? It's a stunning, almost surreal reversal of the invincible image he projected for over 4 decades. But maybe that's what makes the video so powerful. It's not Hogan the superstar. It's Terry the man, bruised by life, softened by age, and finally ready to face his own demons. He doesn't end the video with any grand conclusion or signature sign-off. There's no "what you gonna do?" or "say your prayers and eat your vitamins." Instead, he pauses, looking off camera for a long, silent moment. And then, in a near whisper, he says, "Tell them I tried." The screen cuts to black. That line, "Tell them I tried," has since become a rallying cry among fans online. It's shown up in tribute murals, fan art, memorial banners, even graffiti. Because in that one sentence, Hogan captured what so many people feel but never say: the struggle to do right. The battle to hold on to identity while the world demands a performance. The quiet desperation to be remembered not just for our victories, but for the effort we gave in spite of the pain. Since the video's emergence, tributes to Hogan have shifted in tone. It's no longer just about championships and catchphrases. It's about Terry Bollea's humanity. Fellow wrestlers have opened up in interviews, many revealing their own struggles behind the scenes: anxiety, addiction, depression, isolation. Some credit Hogan's video with giving them the courage to speak up. One former WWE superstar, who asked to remain anonymous, said in a podcast, "Seeing Terry like that, so vulnerable, it hit me in the gut. That man was a god to us growing up. And here he was, broken. Honest. I think he saved lives with that message. I really do." Even WWE, an organization known for carefully controlling its narratives, released a rare public statement acknowledging the video. It read, in part, "Terry Bollea was more than a legend, he was a pioneer. While his final message was not affiliated with WWE, we recognize its emotional weight and support open conversations about mental health in our industry." Behind closed doors, there are whispers that some within the company were not pleased the video became public. Rumors have circulated that the clip was never meant to be seen outside of immediate family, that Linda released it against the wishes of certain legal advisors. Some suggest Hogan's estate may soon face legal challenges regarding the intellectual property rights to his name and likeness. If true, it only deepens the mystery behind what Hogan may have known and what he was trying to warn us about. Still, none of that has stopped the outpouring of love. Memorial services have taken a different shape. Instead of grand arena tributes filled with fireworks and promo packages, many fans and wrestlers alike are gathering in smaller, more intimate settings: candlelight vigils, charity fundraisers, group therapy sessions, all centered around healing, reflection, and honoring the real man behind the icon. As the dust settles, one thing becomes painfully clear: Hulk Hogan's story was never just about wrestling. It was about survival, reinvention, redemption. And now, through this final message, it's about truth. He wanted the world to remember that being a hero doesn't mean being perfect. That strength isn't found in how hard you hit, but in how honest you're willing to be when no one's watching. That sometimes, the bravest thing a man can do is admit he's scared, admit he failed, and still find the courage to speak from the heart. There are no title belts for that kind of bravery. No chance. No merchandise. But in the eyes of those who've seen the video, it's the most heroic thing Hulk Hogan ever did. What makes this revelation even more haunting is how long Hogan may have been carrying the weight of this message inside him. Those close to him have started piecing together signs they once overlooked: the long stares into nothing during interviews, the moments when he trailed off mid-sentence as if distracted by memories too painful to voice. One former production assistant who worked with Hogan on a documentary a few years ago recalled an odd moment between takes. He just stopped talking, looked down at his hands, and said, "You know, it's crazy how much you can give and still feel empty. At the time, I thought he was just tired. But now, I think he was bleeding in silence." This is what fans are beginning to realize. Hulk Hogan, the man who defined charisma and showmanship for a generation, had spent his final years quietly unraveling behind the scenes. He had endured the public highs: WrestleMania main events, Hollywood cameos, and record-breaking merchandise, but he also suffered through the private lows. A highly publicized divorce, the betrayal of close friends, the ridicule of internet culture turning against him, multiple surgeries that left him barely able to walk without pain. His once godlike presence reduced to a fragile reality, and still, he smiled for cameras. Still, he autographed belts for kids and flexed his aging biceps. Still, he showed up at conventions, grinning through pain and pretending he was unbreakable. Until he couldn't pretend anymore. The tragedy of Hogan's final years isn't just that they were painful, it's that they were quiet. That the man who once ruled arenas with deafening applause was forced to process his deepest fears in near solitude. According to Linda, his wife, Hogan became increasingly reclusive in his final year. He stopped taking most calls. He rarely left the house unless it was for treatment. She says he often sat in his home office, writing in notebooks or scrolling through old photos. It was like he was preparing for something, she said. But he never told me what. That office, the one where the video was discovered, has since become a kind of shrine. Journalists have requested access, but the family has denied every request. What's in there now, beyond that video, remains a mystery. More letters? More footage? A memoir? We don't know. But we do know this. What he left behind wasn't just a message for his family or his fans. It was a mirror held up to an industry and to a culture that so often demands perfection at the cost of humanity. It begs the question. How many other legends have felt the same way? How many other icons have sat in the silence of their own homes, wondering if anyone saw them, not just the character? If Hulk Hogan could feel invisible behind the mask of fame, what hope do others have? Wrestlers like Mick Foley, Kevin Nash, and even John Cena have spoken out in recent weeks about the toll the industry takes on the soul. Many of them have acknowledged that they, too, have considered recording messages like Hogan's. You start thinking about your legacy when you're in pain every morning, Foley said in a live stream. You wonder if the character you played is bigger than the man you are, and what happens when the man is gone. But for every celebrity reflecting publicly, there are thousands of everyday people quietly resonating with Hogan's words. People who've worn masks their whole lives, not wrestling masks, but masks of confidence, stability, strength, while secretly feeling like they're falling apart inside. This is what makes Hogan's video so powerful. It's not just a wrestler's final message. It's a universal confession of human fragility. A viral thread on social media summed it up perfectly. Hulk Hogan didn't die as a legend. He died as a man who tried, who hurt, who loved, who got lost, who left behind something real. And that realness has sparked a cultural shift. Mental health hotlines reported a measurable spike in calls the week Hogan's video went viral. Therapists noted an increase in clients mentioning the video, saying it made them want to finally confront their own buried emotions. Even schools began using the video or clips from its transcript in discussions about vulnerability, masculinity, and identity. Meanwhile, fans have created tribute videos of their own. Not highlight reels of Hogan's leg drops or entrances, but personal reflections. A teenager in Georgia posted a TikTok where he watches the video and breaks down crying. A 50-year-old father in Iowa uploaded a short film titled Terry, Not Hulk, featuring his own voiceover about childhood dreams and adult regrets. A community in Miami painted a mural not of Hogan flexing, but of him sitting bandana off, eyes closed with the words, "Tell them I tried," above his head. Even Hogan's once estranged daughter, Brooke, made a rare public statement, sharing a handwritten letter her father had sent her just 6 months before his passing. In it, he apologized for being distant, expressed pride in her resilience, and ended the letter with a now familiar phrase, "No matter what happens, just know I tried." She included a caption, "He wanted to be heard." I'm glad the world is finally listening. But for all this healing, there's still a cloud of mystery hanging over the situation. Hogan's lawyer has declined to answer questions about whether other videos exist. A source close to the family claims there are dozens of audio files, voice memos, even video diaries that Hogan recorded over the years, some hopeful, others deeply unsettling. The family, for now, is keeping them private. But the possibility of future revelations looms large. That's the thing about truth. Once it escapes, it doesn't stop. It begs for more, and while the public waits, the wrestling world mourns. WrestleMania organizers announced that the upcoming show will include a special tribute segment, but not a typical highlight package. Instead, they're planning something quieter, more intimate. An empty ring, a spotlight, and Hogan's final words echoing through the stadium. It will be the first time the company publicly embraces not just the character, but the man behind it, and maybe that's the legacy Hogan truly wanted. Not the fame, not the merchandise, not the statues, but the acknowledgement that behind the muscles and mustache was a man trying to figure it all out, just like the rest of us. His story is no longer just about body slams and rivalries. It's about a man learning, stumbling, healing, and leaving behind a message that might outlive every chant, every belt, every roar of the crowd. His video was not perfect. It was not polished. But it was real. And in a world full of illusions, that makes it priceless. In the weeks that followed the release of Hulk Hogan's hidden video, something unexpected began to happen. A wave of vulnerabilities started to ripple through the wrestling world. Wrestlers, past and present, began sharing their own unfiltered truths. Stories of isolation on the road, depression that set in after retirement, battles with addiction, regret over broken families. It was as if Hogan's final confession had unlocked a collective silence, one that had weighed heavy on a brotherhood built around toughness and bravado. But that was the paradox of Hulk Hogan, wasn't it? He was toughness. He was the man who told an entire generation of kids to take their vitamins and say their prayers, to never give up, to fight their battles head-on. He was the superhero who showed up at just the right time, the symbol of Americana, larger than life, untouchable. And yet, now, here he was gone. And not because of a storyline. Not because of a scripted heel turn. But because life itself had written its final chapter for him. That's what makes this loss so different. The man who once fought Andre the Giant, who brought wrestling into mainstream pop culture, who made brother a national catchphrase, died not with a bang, but in a whisper. A whispered truth. A final plea for understanding. And in that whisper, the world heard something it never expected: pain, fear, longing, humanity. Journalists and media outlets scrambled to pivot. Gone were the flashy tabloid headlines. In their place came deep-dive editorials and think pieces exploring Hulk Hogan as a human story, not a spectacle, not a scandal, but a deeply complex man who had spent his life trying to balance two worlds, the myth and the man, and that dichotomy, the man versus the myth, is perhaps Hogan's most lasting legacy. Terry Bollea didn't just play Hulk Hogan. He became him. Or maybe, over time, Hulk Hogan consumed him. There's a deep sadness in that realization, that the very creation that made him beloved may have also kept him from being truly seen. That's what makes the video so chilling. For the first time, we heard Terry speak. Not the showman, not the entertainer, but the boy from Augusta, Georgia. The son, the father, the man who, at the end of it all, just wanted to be remembered for trying his best. There's one story that resurfaced during all this that perfectly encapsulates the duality of his life. Years ago, during one of Hogan's quieter periods in the public eye, a young fan had written to him. The child was undergoing chemotherapy and wanted nothing more than to meet his hero. Hogan could have ignored it. He could have sent an autograph or recorded a quick message. But he didn't. Instead, he flew across the country without cameras, without PR teams, and sat beside the boy's hospital bed for hours. He didn't say much. He didn't pose. He just listened. When asked why, years later, Hogan reportedly said, "Because he needed to see me. But I needed to see him too." It's that man. The one in the hospital room, the one in the private gym recording a goodbye, the one reaching out to his children after years of emotional distance, that fans are mourning now. Not just the icon, but the individual. The flawed, bruised, and very real soul behind the spotlight. Of course, the video has also sparked questions that won't go away anytime soon. In one segment, Hogan alludes to battles he fought behind closed doors, not just with his health, but with people who wanted to control the story. He says, "They'll smile in your face, make money off your image, and then erase you when you start talking too much." Some believe this was a veiled reference to former business associates or wrestling executives. Others point to old lawsuits and settlement rumors that were buried under non-disclosure agreements. But Hogan never names anyone, whether out of fear, respect, or simply a desire not to start a war after death. He chooses his words carefully. And that restraint has left a lot of room for speculation. Linda, in a rare interview, said, "He didn't want revenge. He just wanted peace." But peace only comes when you've told the truth. She admitted that part of her hesitated before releasing the video. There was so much in it. So much weight. I was scared it would change how people saw him. But in the end, I realized that's what he wanted. He wanted to be seen for all of who he was. And she's right. The video doesn't taint Hogan's legacy. It expands it. It shows us that behind every larger-than-life persona is a person, someone who aches, who wonders if they did enough, who faces mortality with the same trembling hands as anyone else. Someone who knows the lights will one day fade and hopes that what's left behind is something true. It's why fans have rallied around his final words with such intensity. Tell them I tried. It's not just a quote. It's a prayer, a confession, a mantra. And it's become a way for people, not just wrestling fans, to honor their own struggles, to forgive themselves, to reach out to estranged loved ones, to acknowledge their failures without letting them define the whole story. Hulk Hogan may have spent most of his life in character, but in the end, he gave us something more powerful than a character. He gave us truth. Not the kind found in documentaries or press